Hello everyone, and thanks so much for joining us here at the Anchorage Forecast Office for, let's see, Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service. Up first, no warning graphics here. We've got no advisories, warnings, or watches out across the state for tonight or the next couple of days. But satellite imagery showing some cloudiness up here, kind of trying to lift out through across the Arctic coast there. A little bit of light snow on the west side today and flurry conditions, nothing significant at all. Clouds southward there across the Seward Peninsula. Good clearing here over the interior from the Brooks Range all the way down to Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula, Prince William Sound, of course, Copper River Basin, on into Canada, and a mostly sunny day apparently here across the southeast coast. A few more clouds down to the south there due to this band of moisture there across the Queen Charlotte Island areas, and then some more moisture up, spreading clouds up across the, and partly showers here too as well, areas light rain, up into toward the North Gulf Coast there, and some rain today, rain and snow falling at Kodiak, with the Kodiak State Airport picking up about 0.13 of an inch today with the rainfall, and then sunshine for Bristol Bay, and rolling things ahead again. We've got kind of apparently a front here, at least today, appears to be stalled out across the eastern Aleutians here, so light rain fell the entire day in this area here, with Unalaska picking up about 1/3 of an inch of rain in the last 24 hours, nothing too terribly heavy. Clouds here along the Alaska Peninsula, up to the Pribilofs, and then a breakout here over the central Aleutians. Next system coming onto the edge of the chart there with the Cirrus Shield reaching Shimia by picture time at 1 p.m. Saturday afternoon. And of course, higher pressure in advance of that, as I mentioned, looked like some sunshine for Adak and Atka and lighter winds. And this low pressure area associated with this front really off down to the south there and sliding slowly off to the southeast. And this front will continue to weaken and wash out here as the next one starts driving eastward. On the chart today, actually already a trough. I have it drawn in as a trough, not a front already. It's weakened to that point. But again, kept the rain going for the eastern Aleutians today. A few isolated showers here. Again, a little more persistent around Kodiak Island there, especially on the east side, but staying mostly to the south of the Alaska Peninsula, so dry all the way up the west coast in spite of the cloudiness until you hit the flurries up there in the western Arctic coast. And then sunshine here, interior Alaska, all the way down to the, as I mentioned, into the Prince William Sound area. A few clouds here along the Alaska Range, the White Mountain areas, but good day today for the Panhandle until you get into a little more cloudiness heading southward there. And for tonight, that front that was just to the south, that band of moisture will shift eastward and dissipate. It'll be a variably cloudy night here for the southeast coast. Still some northerly breezes there over the northern and maybe the central inside water areas, outflow winds, but nothing strong at all. And fair skies in store for interior Alaska, again from the North Gulf Coast, actually the Gulf of Alaska, all the way up to the Arctic coast, the exception being still this pesky trough here, keeping a few flurries going possibly there for the Barrow area, Browerville and those locations, and that's about it. When we may have also some flurries here through the Bering Strait, maybe in the Chukchi Sea, nothing heavy at all. Dry conditions, light winds, general area of high pressure here, ridging southward and then on down to the southeast across eastern Aleutians. And looks like a fair evening, light winds for the Fox Islands, rainfall you're seeing today ending, kind of shifting off to the east here. And still a chance of showers there for Kodiak Island, but less of a chance of what you saw today. And it looks like most of this moisture, at least through tonight, will stay to the east and southeast, and also for the Alaska Peninsula, again, it will stay off to your southeast. Otherwise, the next system, gale force winds and a narrow band in advance of that front with rain and snow will push into the area tonight, and that'll continue eastward into the Adak-Atka area tomorrow with possible, again, gale force winds with the tightest gradient here up to the north and then on the south side of the low center, but still enough, the lines are close enough together to possibly produce sustained winds 35 knots or greater, but again, that won't be a very widespread area. And then looks like some shower threat continues for Kodiak for Sunday, but dry over the interior again. Nothing but maybe a few clouds, variable clouds. Some areas possibly mostly cloudy, but I think more areas will be mostly sunny than cloudy. And that same pattern will extend out to the coastline as well, with course, offshore flow continuing up to the north, kind of no flow at all. Light winds here for the southwest coast into the Kuskokwim Valley with sunshine, and the southeast coast now look for a few more clouds, maybe chance of showers popping up. Most of the shower activity will be off the coast, but some will find their way inland there possibly. But to the north should be dry with some sunshine. Isolated showers there mostly off in Canada. And then for the outlook on Monday, different story. Storm rolls northward here. Warm front rain spread northward across the Panhandle. Increasing southeast winds as well here. Could maybe possibly reach gale force by the afternoon there on the south coast. That's just a maybe at this point. And then rain spreading northward, maybe mixed with snow from, say, Haines up towards Skagway, maybe not, but definitely rain here down to the south, and then rain and snow shower chances, weak trough in the North Gulf Coast areas. Mostly sunny northern interior into the Tanana Valley. Very nice day coming up. Maybe some east winds, 10 to 20, possibly here over the eastern part of the state there. But lighter winds. Look for an increase in the clouds here for southern Alaska due to actually a couple of troughs, 1 2 week to draw in, but could be some light snow showers going on the eastern slopes of the western Alaska Range. And with this trough here bringing the moisture up into western Prince William Sound, the east side of the Kenai Peninsula. So general increase, probably mostly cloudy day for the remainder of southern Alaska. Low pressure covering the Bering Sea out there. Pretty good gradient here. Westerlies pretty strong, probably even gale force or better out to the west there with colder air rushing in. So snow showers to just maybe outright snow there for the Shemya area. Mixed rain and snow showers to Adak and Atka. And then showers behind the front there for the eastern Aleutians with rain for the Alaska Peninsula. Chance of snow reaches southwest coast late in the day, particularly in Nunivak Island. But really pretty good up to the north, maybe a little bit of an increase in the breeze there out of the east or east-northeast up toward the St. Lawrence Island area. And still kind of breezy there on the eastern Arctic coast. Lows for tonight up that way, either side of zero by about 5 degrees there for the Arctic coast. North slope probably 5 below for the most part to near zero in the Brooks Range here. Arctic Village 6 below. Single numbers down into the eastern Tanana Valley with lows in the 10 to 15 degree range for the central interior through here. And let's see, north side of the Seward Peninsula, lows right around 10, single numbers up here in the northwest. Lower 20, St. Lawrence Island, on down to Macoriac, 23 for the forecast low, and teens for the Yukon Delta, turn to 20s for the Kuskokwim Delta, lower 20s, and then mid-20s for Bristol Bay, mid-30s Kodiak Island, and mid-upper 20s South Central Alaska. Some areas a little cooler, lower 30s North Gulf Coast, lower to mid-30s for the Panhandle. High temperatures for, tomorrow. Upper 30s out here over the Aleutians with lower 40s for the Fox Islands into the Alaska Peninsula, and then dropping back to the upper 30s to near 40 for northeast Bristol Bay all the way up to Iliamna Lake. And call it 45 to 50, Madanuska-Susitna Valley and maybe the Kenai Peninsula, but down toward the coast mostly in the mid to upper 40s. And then mid-30s here over the eastern Tanana Valley to possibly up around 41 for Nenana, maybe Fairbanks. And then, of course, cooler north of the Brooks Range with highs 5 to 10 for the Arctic coast. And then for the Monday morning lows, shaping up like this, mid to upper 30s, not too bad here, kind of mild, especially down south, lower 40s for the southern Panhandle there. Again, next system, wind, rain, clouds, of course, helping keep those temperatures up as that warm front moves northward, and that means wet conditions. Lower to mid-30s for the North Gulf Coast, upper 30s Kodiak Island, and then we've got, looks like teens here, Alaska Range, eastward out to the greater Nome area, into the lower 20s for St. Lawrence Island. Add 10 degrees to that for the Pribilofs, and generally lows a little below zero for the North Slope Arctic Coast into the Brooks Range there with Arctic Village 4 below, and then the highs in the afternoon looking mostly in the teens here along the Arctic coast. And again, 45 to 50-ish, even northern Cook Inlet, Anchorage on up in the Madanuska-Susitna Valley, even in spite of what might be an increase in the clouds here on Monday, but lower 40s for the peninsula, 40s for the Panhandle to near 50, and looks like St. Lawrence Island right around 30, otherwise upper 30s for the Bering Sea.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
On to flying weather. IFR out here with the next system coming into the Aleutians out there, and also up here over the northwest Bering. That for tomorrow morning, marginal VFR covering a fair portion of the Bering Sea. Break over the central Aleutians. VFR over much of the interior. North Slope Arctic coast, mostly marginal, but as you can see, good VFR, Copper River Basin right down across the southeast coast with some marginal VFR along the west coast of Prince of Wales Island. In the afternoon, that holds down there and actually expands a little bit, especially up to the north toward Port Alexander. Looks like it shifts inland a little bit. Otherwise, VFR on up to the north, Prince William Sound, Kenai Peninsula, all of southern Alaska here, VFR, as well as the northern areas, until you get to the North Slope and the Arctic coast. And out west, we got VFR all along the coast from Norton Sound down across Bristol Bay, eastern Aleutians, and advancing front pushes IFR in a band eastward to Adak and Atka. So conditions definitely coming down there throughout the day, and marginal for the Pribilofs with the area IFR here south of the Alaska Peninsula. That slips on up to southern Kodiak Island on the eastern side there, and just falls short of Fognak Island. And then for the Monday morning forecast, we've got IFR here over the Yukon Delta to the Kuskokwim River, and more IFR with that front here stalled out. Looks like over the Pribilofs now shifting to the eastern Aleutians, and we're actually pushing up to the Pribilofs, and then some more IFR with a low center back to the west. VFR continues all across interior Alaska, North Gulf Coast, so marginal, Arctic coast marginal, and the Panhandle, a lot of marginal VFR with IFR over toward the border. And in the afternoon, that diminishes a little bit there, over the IFR does along the border. Otherwise, breaking out to VFR over the inside channels in areas, marginal VFR North Gulf Coast, VFR inland areas here, southern Alaska, and again, up until you get to the North Slope and Arctic coast, goes back to marginal. IFR trying to push in toward the coastline here. It does reach Nunivak Island there late in the day, Alaska Peninsula. A break right behind the front, marginal VFR the rest of the way out with the IFR to the north. And for Anaktuvik and Adigan, tomorrow, VFR, same forecast, Lake Clark and Merrill. Pretty good VFR day coming up for Lake Clark, Merrill, and rainy as well. In fact, all the passes, I believe, if I remember correctly, are VFR. Definitely windy, Isabel and Mentasta, VFR. Tanita could start out marginal, possibly. Otherwise, it'll be VFR through the entire day. Tomorrow, Portage, same forecast. Chilkoot and White, looking pretty good, VFR. Freezing levels, 2,000 feet here. Actually, that's a 4,000-foot pocket there over the Kenai Peninsula. It's a little bit warmer air aloft now, pushing up into southern Alaska, and then 4,000 feet over the northern Panhandle, and about that all the way down to the Queen Charlottes. And we've got the surface here kind of meandering out across from Bristol Bay into the Bering Sea, heading northwest, real close to St. Paul for tomorrow morning, just south of St. Matthew Island, and some warmer air showing up, but staying mostly to the south of the western Aleutians, although 2,000 feet shifting up toward Amchitka Island. And then for the icing threats, with that system coming in from the west, nothing really severe, just isolated moderate rime icing 4,000 to 6,000 feet here, coming in with a front to the central Aleutians, mostly in the afternoon, and some areas hanging back to the west. Otherwise, icing free here over the remainder of the interior, although that moisture shifting westward, some showers there will bring a threat of some possibly mixed icing to southern Kodiak Island there, mostly from Chiniat Marmot Bay on down towards Sitkinak. Otherwise, icing free. And then for the winds aloft, we've got upper high pressure here over the interior, northward to the Arctic. So this portion of the jet splits right through here, coming across the western Pacific out of Asia, and weaker branch heading north there around the upper high, and then the more southern, stronger branch dropping well to the south here, coming back to the north, but nowhere close to the southeast coast. So this area here in the upper low supporting that storm coming into the western Aleutians to the central Aleutians tomorrow afternoon. And for the 9,000-foot winds, pretty light over the interior, 25 to 30 on the Arctic coast there. Stronger out here with that system to the west, 45 to 50 knots with that. Southeast 15, 10 to 15 for the Panhandle. And at 3,000 feet, light easterlies here, 15 to 20 for the interior. Southwest, 35 to 45 with this storm, and even as high as 50 knots there just north of the Aleutians. Turbulence, that's the turbulence will be occasionally moderate chop for the Aleutians, slowly spreading eastward. And after the break, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
Welcome back to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider, and joining us here today is Eric Stevens from the Geographic Information Network of Alaska at the University of Alaska Fairbanks, GINA for short. And Eric, you frequently come on the show to tell us about these really cool things that we're doing with satellites over Alaska and how we can use these really awesome tools. But I'm thinking all the while there has to be a mad scientist somewhere working on the next cool thing in the satellite laboratory. What is being developed today?
Right. Well, you know, when I was a kid growing up in the boonies in North Dakota there, on Sunday after church, the old people, like my parents and their parents, would gather and have coffee and talk. And I kind of eavesdropped on them a little bit. And the theme of a lot of these conversations seemed to be, well, isn't it amazing what they can do these days, someone would say.
Sure.
And I was thinking, oh, I don't know, I was too young.
Right.
Well, now I'm old enough in the weather satellite business.
You can remember when.
The new generation of weather satellites, I'm starting to say, isn't it amazing what they can do these days? Because it's always improving.
Yes.
Maybe an analogy here is like television. Television started in black and white, then it went to color. Analog signal transitioned to digital here a number of years ago. Standard definition becomes high definition. Right. Well, weather satellites are changing too. First weather satellites went up around 1960, not that long ago. No. It's comparatively young science. And every time a new series of satellite is launched, we learn from the past, so the mad scientists decide, well, we could make the next satellite even better in such and such a respect. Yes. And now the United States is on the verge of launching, or in progress of launching, a series of new geostationary satellites that are better than ever before. Okay. Let's take a look at some of the previews of what these new satellites can do.
Peek inside the lab here, okay.
Yeah, and so we'll peek in, and here are some mad scientists and mad technicians dressed in bunny suits. This is, believe it or not, this is the business end of a weather satellite under construction in a clean room. You don't want a speck of dust on the lens of a weather satellite's camera. So this is done in a clean environment. They are building a geostationary satellite there.
Oh, cool.
This new generation of satellites, if you had to answer the question, why are these better? Why do we care? Okay. You could answer it with 3 words: faster, better, more. The new generation of satellites are faster than the older ones. The images are sharper, they're better, and there's more spectral channels. We'll talk about that.
Any one of these called Steve Austin? It sounds faster, better, stronger.
Yeah. You know what, though? These things cost more than $6 million.
Yeah, I'm sure.
They're pricey. But they are an essential tool for the Weather Service to fulfill its mission of protecting lives and property.
Exactly.
You got to have the tool to do the job. And it helps all of us when we get the accurate forecast, the warning in time, and this is the tool. Faster. On left here, we see what the old generation of satellites could scan in 5 minutes. On the right, that's what you get in 5 minutes, the whole planet, or at least one side of it. So it's faster. That means you can take more images over a given amount of time and make smoother movie loops out of that. Because animating movie loops really helps you highlight a feature that maybe you can't see as well in a single image.
Absolutely does, yep.
Let's zoom into a small piece of real estate like Texas.
Sure.
And we can see here a satellite that has a 1-minute movie loop visible light. You can see thunderstorms boiling there.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah, the rippling of the top of the thunderstorm. This is a fun movie loop. We're going to be able to see things like this more and more often because of the new satellites being generated. Some things are only evident in animation. So that's faster. Well, what's better? We're able to now have sharper imagery than before. The Japanese have a satellite that uses the same imager that is on the new generation of satellites that America is launching too. An imager, that's just a word for camera. It's the camera on a weather satellite. We have something called the Advanced Baseline Imager.
Sounds important.
ABI. It's important enough it has an acronym. Everything's an acronym. Well, an ABI-like instrument is here over the Western Pacific, and we can see this color image. This is what a human eye might see if you were riding on the satellite. But it's a little bit fuzzy. With new technology, you can post-process the image taken by the satellite to highlight and sharpen some of the features. So this image here of the Western Pacific then becomes this image. Thanks to the processing techniques, yes, this is the newest technology. So we've got a new satellite that can provide better data than ever before. And on the ground, we can process it better than before as well to really sharpen up the imagery and to give us a better view of the weather than ever before. So faster and better and more. What do we mean by more? Well, on the older generation of satellites, the imager, the camera, had 5 slices of the spectral pie, visible imagery, infrared imagery, something we can't see from the human eye. A lot of different slices of the pie. We're going from 5. The new imager has 16 slices. Each slice has its own relevance. Some are best for volcanic ash, for smoke, for dust, for telling the difference between smoke and dust, which can look similar under some infrared channels, but other ones bring out certain things. All of these 16 bands are important. In fact, some of the mad scientists, they didn't want 16, they wanted 24. There's always more you can do.
Right.
But that'll be the next generation of satellites. So now we say, isn't it amazing what we can do these days? And you know what? It makes you think, well, what's the future going to be like too? It's so important to be able to know what's going on now in the weather. If you're going to forecast the future, you got to know where things are now. And satellites are the way to see that, especially in Alaska, where we don't have as many observations down on the ground. The satellites fill in the holes.
Yeah, really important stuff. And I love hearing about what we can see right now, but I love thinking about what is possible in the future. It's amazing stuff. And since you paid for it, it's a good time to learn about it. If you'd like, check out the website at www.goes-r.gov. And as I understand, it's a really easy website to use.
Oh yeah, a lot of good information about what these new satellites mean to Americans. And it's the Weather Service's mission to protect lives and property, and this is the tool how to do it.
Cool stuff, Eric. Thanks so much for sharing that with us today, and thank you for joining us right here in Alaska Weather Facts. We'll see you next time.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Today's sea ice analysis. Not too bad, or not too different from yesterday. Looks like it may be a little more ice down in Kuskokwim Bay there, off to the northwest, Nunivak Island, but really little discernible change here on up to the northwest, with still sea ice-free water north and northwest of St. Lawrence Island. And not a lot of change in this expected over the next couple of days. For the southeast coast, look for south becoming southeast, just 15 knots down to the south with 7 to 8 foot seas. Southeasterlies become easterly at 20 knots there for the north coast with 6 foot seas. Lynn Canal, north 20, north 15 for Stevens Passage, southeast 15 for Clarence Strait. Let's take a look at the outlook for Monday with the next system rolling up from the south. We'll see gale force winds appear here for the south coast in the afternoon. Winds increasing to 30 knots for the remainder of the coastline. There'll be an increase throughout the day into the afternoon with seas anywhere from 8 to 11 feet. Southeast coming up to 30 knots as well for Clarence Strait. 20 knots in the afternoon from the southeast for Stevens Passage. Winds stay north but lighter now for northern Lynn Canal. Prince William Sound, east winds at 10, slight seas, northeast 15 for the eastern North Gulf Coast, but light winds out of the east and northeast here for the western North Gulf Coast. Barren Islands, north 20 though for Ketchimak Bay, otherwise north to northeast 10 to 15 for Cook Inlet with 3 to 5 foot seas, highest south of the Forelands. Outlook for Monday, excuse me, north winds 20 knots north of the Forelands. Well, actually all of Cook Inlet north 20 knots, seas 6 to maybe as high as 8 feet, or 8 feet, and then northeast 20 with 7 foot seas there for Ketchimak Bay. Barren Islands, small craft advisories, east winds, east northeasterlies actually for all of the North Gulf Coast with 6 to 7 foot seas and 15 knots, seas 3 feet, the forecast for Prince William Sound. Kodiak Island northeast at 20 and northeasterlies 20 knots extend all the way down to Castle Cape, then they become north to Cape Sarachev. Lighter winds on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula, northeast 15 here, north 15 for Bristol Bay. Outlook for Monday, east winds 25 knots, Bristol Bay, so coming up with small craft advisories there, as well as the entire coastline here, all the way down to Cape Sarachev, out of the southeast. Southeast 20 on the Pacific side, turn east 20 from Castle Cape to Sitkinak, and actually all the way up the east side of Kodiak Island. Stronger winds in store for Shelikof Strait, small craft advisories with seas approaching 10 feet. And out west, looks like southeast 35 to, or I'm sorry, south becoming southwest 35 to 40 knots there for the far western Aleutians. Southerly winds coming up to 35, Adak and Atka, and increase in the winds tomorrow afternoon, 20 to 25 here, and then just staying variable at 15 for Unalaska Island. Outlook for Monday, not variable any longer with southwest, the prevailing direction at 25 knots with 8 to 11 foot seas. Looks like some gales working in toward the Fox Islands in the afternoon. Otherwise, a full gale here with a tight gradient now over the Aleutians. Cold air sweeping in from the west, 40 knots. Adak and Atka increasing to 45 to as high as 50 knots. So a storm warning for the western Aleutians on Monday with seas building to 35 feet. And for the southwest coast, east-northeast 15 knots, southeast 15 for the Pribilofs, and east 20 St. Matthew Island, same thing all the way up to the Bering Strait. And those winds will actually increase here on Monday. It looks like brisk wind advisories now, or small craft advisories, depending upon the ice cover up there. So east 25, St. Lawrence Island, down to Nunivak Island, stronger south there with easterlies at 30 out of Kuskokwim Bay, right across St. Matthew Island, south 30, 10-foot seas for the Pribilofs. Arctic coast, east side, easterlies 15 knots. Lighter winds out of the east for the central coast, southerlies at 10 here for the west side down to Cape Thompson. Cape Thompson, Bering Strait, light easterlies at 10. And the outlook for Monday, brisk wind advisories here, eastern Beaufort Sea coast and the central coast, 20 knots. Same thing for the west side, roughly 15 here, that Cape Beaufort to Cape Thompson zone, and then south of that to the Bering Strait, east at 20 knots. And tonight again, not a lot going on. Fair skies, light winds for the most part, especially up here to the north. Winds light on down to the southwest coast. Just a risk of maybe some flurries. Nothing else to mention really for the Arctic coast there, right around Barrow and also the Bering Strait. And then this front bringing the wind and rain and snow into the western Aleutians. Snow to start, changing to rain, but then changing back to snow behind the front. Otherwise, less showers for Kodiak and dry for the Panhandle. Look for a few scattered showers, possibly developing and moving inland here associated with this trough, but most of the moisture you'll see off the coast through tomorrow. Another day, much like today for the interior, and that front pushes eastward to about this position Monday afternoon.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.